Good morning, welcome to Up with KREM. It is 6 o'clock, and Liz, we were having a very good conversation about the eclipse just right before we started the show. So I want to get to meteorologist Thomas Patrick, because Thomas, you said it's life-changing.
Yeah, well, the total solar eclipse felt like it was life-changing because that was the one we had in 2017. It was for portions of Oregon. I viewed it in Illinois, and it is a marvelous event. It is one of the coolest things that you can witness in your lifetime. The eclipse that we're going to get tomorrow isn't the total eclipse, it's called an annular eclipse. And if you're staying here in Spokane, it's just going to be deep partial for us. All of the U.S. is going to get a partial solar eclipse, and ours will be about 80% obscured. Unfortunately, I do think it's actually going to be quite cloudy heading into the weekend, and we'll cover that weekend forecast in a bit more detail a little bit later on. I don't want to spoil it too much off the top of the show. As of right now, though, it's not foggy. It is just clear and cool, with temperatures well into the 40s and a few 30s in northeastern Washington, as cool as 33 right now in Colville. But we're expecting a sunny day today, but more cloud cover for the weekend.
100 local Kaiser Permanente workers are voting today to decide if they should strike. Across the country, 75,000 Kaiser workers already walked off the job last week because they still don't have a new contract. If local workers vote to strike today, it would be part of the next potential national strike on November 1st. This vote is not just for our local Spokane workers, but for the 3,000 people here in Washington state. The union will announce how that vote goes at 10 o'clock this morning. We'll let you know what happens on KREM 2 News at noon. Governor Jay Inslee was here in Spokane yesterday. He stopped at Spokane's Red Cross Center to talk about what the state is doing for the victims of the Gray and Oregon Road fires. So far, the state has given more than $4 million in disaster relief funds for the fires. Yesterday, though, someone asked Governor Inslee when we might see any federal money come through. He says he requested that money, but it's still a long and difficult process to get the funds.
We think the damage warrants us at least making a college try to get this. The problem we're having is there are so many disasters around the country, many of which have been precipitated by climate change, that there are areas that have had larger damage than we have.
Well, he says they do not know when we might get that federal money. This morning, Israel is telling residents of Gaza to evacuate because they're planning on invading the Strip this weekend. Israel told the United Nations that more than 1 million residents in the northern Gaza Strip have about a day to evacuate to the south. But the UN says making that happen is not possible without devastating humanitarian consequences. Egypt is not letting any Palestinians escape to their country because they don't know if Israel will ever let them go back to Gaza. Since the attack started last week, Israel has cut Gaza off from electricity and fuel, so the situation for people there, nearly half of them children, is already dire, and hospitals are overwhelmed.
I think the whole medical sector and the health department maybe will collapse maybe in 2 or 3 days.
Hamas is calling for worldwide protests today. Because of that, U.S. law enforcement is stepping up security in Jewish and Muslim communities. The Capitol in Washington also put up fences. Meanwhile, both France and Germany ordered a complete ban on any pro-Palestinian protests for the foreseeable future. Brand new for you this morning, the Shoshone County Jail failed its last inspection and lost its certification. This inspection found the jail was severely overcrowded more than 80% of the time. Our news partners at the Coeur d'Alene Press say the jail is only supposed to hold 48 inmates, but sometimes they had more than 60 inmates there. The jail is also dealing with staffing issues. They have 4 open positions for corrections officers right now, and this is something the jail's been dealing with for years now. You might remember back in 2015, an inmate escaped from the jail and was on the run for several days before local homeowners shot him and police arrested him. KREM 2 spoke to the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office when that happened. They said the inmate escaped when just one trained guard was watching over more than 50 inmates.
It's extremely difficult to do them with the few people that we do have.
Now, almost a decade later, these issues have not gone away. Since they lost their certification, the jail will have to pay an insurance penalty, and the state won't give them money to house certain inmates anymore. Next month, the state of Idaho will put to death its longest-serving death row inmate. A judge issued a death warrant for 73-year-old Thomas Creech. He's been on death row for more than 40 years. Officers arrested Creech back in the 70s for murdering 2 men while he was hitchhiking from Lewiston down to Donnelly. Creech calls himself a serial killer and actually confessed to dozens of murders across the western United States. He's been on death row since the 80s after he murdered another inmate. This will be Idaho's first execution in more than a decade because the state has had problems getting the lethal injection drug for executions. But the state says it now has the drug, so Creech is set to be executed on November 8th.
It's 6:06, another check of our weather forecast for today. We are expecting a sunny day as we are finding ourselves kind of in that sweet spot in between any storm systems. There's a little bit of light cloud cover to the east over western Montana and a next storm system that is starting to push closer towards western Oregon and western Washington. That's where tomorrow's cloud cover and even tomorrow's rainfall will come from, but today we should enjoy a sunny day. We have no fog out there this morning. All the visibility reports are clear across the inland northwest, so smooth sailing on the roadways, unlike what we had yesterday, thankfully. Temperatures will be warmer because we get that sunshine straight away, as we'll see highs in the upper 60s for some regions.
Today is the United States Navy's 248th birthday. The Navy is actually older than the U.S. itself. It started on this day, of course, but back in 1775 to carry out attacks against the British during the Revolutionary War. The U.S. Navy has been involved in every single conflict our nation has ever faced, from the Barbary Pirates to the War on Terror. Today, the U.S. Navy is the largest maritime force on Earth. More than 400,000 sailors serve across 5 continents, and to all those sailors, we do say thank you for your service.